What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to your very first real week of football review. Man, we have got a ton to talk about today. Can't wait to get into it. So glad you guys are here. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share, send it to your mom and them. So welcome back. Finally, had a real football weekend for a change. So nice. What's going on, RJ All Day, Husker Gray, David Johnson, Junkyard Dog 2003, Brad Pitt. Welcome to the stream, sir. We're going to give everybody a few more minutes to go ahead and jump on, and then we'll get into it. Trust me, there is plenty to talk about tonight. So also going to have another wonderful appearance by Mr. Keith. I believe you guys are familiar with Big Dog Keith. That's what I am going to call him until he decides to come up with a name of his own. Until then, he is Big Dog Keith. So he can do what he wants to do. As always, I am here, Big Dog Brett, the one, the only, the infamous, and sometimes dangerous. Okay, so especially when it comes to betting, don't follow me. I'm terrible. Made almost enough money to pay for the Uber back home. All right, guys, what's going on? Artie Clay, welcome back to the channel, sir. And there is Mr. Keith himself. Let's go ahead and get that invite out there. You guys are welcome to join the show. We like having you other people on the show. Man, we're going to go through all 25, the top 25 teams. We're going to go through the SEC teams because pretty much every SEC team, at least one of those games, somebody was in the top 25. So it's going to be interesting. An exciting weekend, tons of developments, tons of disappointments, and failures. We're going to go over them all because nobody is going to escape unscathed. Whew. Let me see here. Hold on one second there. So over the course of the weekend here, my Jamie, if you were so worried, you should have stayed with the team, sir. I don't know. Kind of left us hanging out here, twisted in the wind. What's going on, CJ Keynes? Let me see if I can find it here real quick. I want to show you guys. I believe it was Friday night. I just walked into my daughter's room, and me and her were having a conversation. Went to walk out of the room, and she accidentally closed the door on my finger here. So this will give you a pretty good indication of what happened to that finger. And then after a little bit of home surgery, as you can see, it's a lot better now. Minor hole, lots of relief. Yeah. So that's kind of how my Friday went leading up to my Saturday. And then Saturday started off a bit concerning. I think Keith is probably getting set up. Well, he'll join us here in just a moment. What's going on, Rob F? If we can score that many points with a walk-on QB, with better QB play, we're in there. Absolutely. Big Dog became Big Mad. That is an accurate assessment, sir. Thank you for that assessment, Mr. Weasley. All right, here's Big Dog Keith now. Like I said, until he changes his name, that's what he's going to be. So, welcome back, sir.
Hey, how's it going, man?
All right.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, I hear you. Really good this go around.
All right.
Lighting appears to be a little better today as well. We can see your face. We'll send you a lamp in the mail. What's up, Crimson Brave? Crimson Brave, I believe my channel is the only channel that doesn't constantly put you in timeout. So whatever makes you behave better here, I appreciate it. All right, BDK, what's on the agenda here today?
Well, we want to start talking about the dogs. We're going to go everywhere else first.
Let's circle around. Let's give everybody a little bit of time to jump on here. So I figured what we do since last week, we kind of went through the games that were playing the top 25. I kind of figured we should do the same, kind of how we bore out with that. And as always, Texas fans, we're going to come to you guys not last, but next to last. I think let's start with did the number one team play? I believe did Clemson play yesterday? I don't think they did they?
No. I don't believe so.
So that leaves us with the former number 2 Alabama. Which will probably be number one. No, I'm just kidding. You guys will still be number two. Oklahoma coming in at number three, but will not remain seated in that position. So thoughts and prayers for the Oklahoma fan base. It was well, y'all's college football season didn't last long.
No, I didn't see that one coming. I think we missed that one big time. I think unless somebody is like Nostradamus, man, I think that one lost a lot of people some money, or maybe made somebody a lot of money. I don't know.
Listen, the only people that bet that game were people that made a mistake when they picked the team and it wouldn't let them go back and change it. The other people that bet on that, the only other person I know to bet on that game was actually Matt Groening. So,
yeah, that was. Yeah, I was watching the Georgia game, not really paying attention to that game, and I saw the ticker come across the bottom, and I was just like, "What?" I mean, that one floored me for sure. There was a lot of craziness happened this weekend, but I think that one may have taken the cake.
The fact that somebody scored 38 points on Oklahoma does not surprise me.
Right.
The fact that Oklahoma only scored 35
that's why
surprised me.
Yeah, I think that's the one that we were, the over-under was really high. The line was 18, and it was like, there's just no way, we didn't think they were going to cover that.
Looks like we were right, but that's a lot of disappointment in a fan base. To start out 1-1. I mean, as much as we like to ride on Oklahoma, they really have had a record of being able to at least get to the playoff consistently, consecutively, unless something crazy happens. That's probably over with now, but what a year. We'll come back and talk about that here later on in the season, see how they do. But Spencer Rattler did not look good. He went 30 for 41, which is a pretty good percentage. Yeah. And the kid almost threw for 400 yards, which is incredible. And 4 touchdowns, which normally any other day.
His slash line, I mean, you look at it, you would have figured they'd have won that game. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, 30 for 41, 387 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a good day. I didn't watch this game to see how well he looked, and I know, I mean, that sounds pretty prototypical of an Oklahoma performance. They just usually are on the winning side of those kind of games.
Yeah, well, welcome to the channel, Dwayne RTR, one of our wonderful, illustrious, and celebrated members of the channel. He actually joined in for $2 a month, or maybe might have been the $5 a month. He's part of the behind-the-scenes stuff. And Dwayne, we got to figure out how to get you a link so that you can watch all those videos a little bit better. I know it's a problem with that right now with YouTube, but we're going to get it figured out. If you guys care to join the channel, there's a members button down here that says join for $2 a month. You get some behind the scenes stuff, kind of my thoughts of what's going on throughout the week that I don't have time or the energy to make a video on. So, but anyway, if you want to support the channel, feel free. If not, hit thumbs like, subscribe, thumbs up. You can support the channel that way. Now, the one thing that really kind of killed Oklahoma, especially when they were gaining momentum, is the interceptions. If you're going to, and this is the problem with having a team that doesn't have a solid defense. If you don't have a solid defense to help your offense, your offense can't make these kind of mistakes. So in 2 or 3 interceptions in a game, if you take those 2 interceptions back and you say, okay, they get 2 touchdowns out of that, that's 49 points on the board. That's close enough to 50. That's definitely going to win you the game. But whenever your defense cannot keep you in it, that's a problem. If you look in the fourth quarter, Oklahoma scored 0 points. Appreciate it, Dwayne. They scored 0 points in the fourth quarter, and K-State scored 17. I believe at one point Oklahoma had like a 31-point lead in this game or something, or 30-point lead in this game or something ridiculous, and they managed to still lose it. So very disappointing.
3 interceptions. That's that negates some great numbers. It
does.
Yeah.
So let's go over here. We're gonna come back and talk to Georgia here in a little bit. We're gonna jump down and talk about Florida here for a few minutes. I know we got some Florida fans in the channel. Florida looked good, but there were certainly times where I could see holes. Now, of course, I'm going to beat up on Florida because I'm a Georgia fan. But for a while there, Ole Miss was going back and forth, and that game really looked a lot closer than it was as far as the numbers went. But I really thought there for a while it looked like Ole Miss was starting around the corner, and then it kind of got out of hand from them. But
yeah, Yeah, that game, I mean, I think we were texting back and forth about Florida looking like they were struggling early on. And it wasn't really so much Florida struggling. I just think, Ole Miss had some good momentum early on. Matt Corral was, I mean, he was having a great game.
For sure.
I mean, a couple of those passes, especially those back-to-back, that cross that he threw and then the touchdown pass. I mean, that was 2 consecutive plays. That was impressive.
Now I'll tell you, I really was. I was impressed by Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask, another quarterback who came out and put on an exemplary performance.
Yeah.
He threw 30 for 42. That's like nearly 70% completion rate, and that's, I mean, which is really a great number to have. When you consider that at some point a quarterback's going to roll out and get out of the pocket and have to throw it away, and that number's going to ding his overall. So he's taking a hit on a pass he really didn't even try to make. 30 for 42 and threw for over 400 touchdowns. And 400 touchdowns. Geez. Yeah, right. 416 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's an incredible showing. But I have to flip the coin and say, okay, the guy threw for 6 touchdowns. That's incredible. They let Ole Miss score 35.
Yeah. I mean, this was a Lane Kiffin Ole Miss, so they were going to come out. They were going to have, they were going to have some wrinkles on offense, which we saw. I mean, we saw, the double pass. You saw all kinds of craziness coming out of them, and it worked. I mean, it worked for the most part. But just like any of that stuff, though, it works for a while, and then
teams figure out how to,
they figure it out and they adapt, and that's what Florida did. Games like that, the superior teams generally come out on top after the razzle dazzle kind of settles down, but. Man, it was fun to watch. The first half of that game was very fun to watch. And, I think Lane Kiffin, I think the whole state of Mississippi is interesting with Leach and Kiffin. And now you got Deion Sanders at Jackson State. That it's crazy over there. And, we'll talk about the Mississippi State game in a bit, but man, I think Ole Miss is, I think they're going to be, on up and up with Lane Kiffin. That was a great hire. I'm not really a huge fan of Kiffin, but he is a great offensive mind, and I think he will definitely push Ole Miss in the right direction.
Well, I think Ole Miss, if you look at where the program used to be, the program used to be a really high-powered offense. You used to see these guys flying around the field. The land shark thing was really popular. I mean, they used to have a high-powered offense, and then it was kind of like Arkansas, all of a sudden it just faded away. And now they're trying to get back to it. I think if Ole Miss can develop a little bit of a defense, they will certainly be a contender in the future. But they definitely showed sparks of brilliance here.
Yeah. It was, like I said, the first half was really fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, I guess we'll jump down here. Let's go ahead and talk about LSU. Another incredible upset for the day. I think maybe not as near as much as the Oklahoma upset, but certainly an upset. If you would have told me that Mississippi State was going to hang 44 points on LSU, I'd have said, I don't know about all of that. But when we're talking about passers, guys, that's what we've been talking about all day today. We've got to talk about Costello. And no, I'm not talking about the comedian. I'm talking about probably the best performance of SEC caliber quarterbacking all Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
If you watch this guy, he put 623 yards on the board. He went 36 for 60. That's a lot of arm slinging and 5 touchdowns. And by the way, they were picking up momentum in the fourth quarter. They did not take their foot off the gas pedal. Now they weren't scoring every time they had the ball, but they scored consistently. LSU got off to a sluggish start. Ole Miss come out there, and the defense really showed up in the first quarter. And Mississippi State's defense showed up in the first quarter. LSU struggled with it, and then they started to bounce back. But then it was back and forth up until the fourth quarter, and Mississippi State started pouring it on.
Well, it's Mike Leach, it's air raid offense coming to Mississippi State. It didn't disappoint. This kid goes out. I mean, you got a Mike Leach quarterback and the air raid offense coming in, and all of a sudden now it's an SEC record for passing. I think that record was Eric Zayers before. At like 500 something yards, and this kid blew that record out of the water. I mean, it was 60 passing attempts, but I mean, he got 600 something yards off 30 completions. I mean, they were throwing the ball.
Think about that now. That's basically averaging almost 20 yards a pass.
Yeah.
That's a lot, dude. Kyle Trask, he threw for 30 yards. Kyle Trask had 30 completions, and he had 400 yards. With 6 more completions, just 6 more, Costello picked up an additional 207 yards to tell you how good that is. So,
yeah, they were slinging the ball for sure.
That game was crazy. This is definitely, I think, a game where LSU's overlooked, and it overlooked in a big way. Mississippi State. They really thought they could just walk all over Mississippi State. They were not the only team guilty of that. Somebody else we know, I think, did the same thing in the first quarter, but it doesn't look like LSU was able to recover. Them not being able to score in the first quarter really put them behind the chains, and they never could get caught up again.
Yeah, I mean, they lost a lot. I think a lot of people figured they were going to struggle early on, and I don't think anybody really expected them to lose this game, but the LSU, I think we even talked about it. You're really not sure what we were going to get with how many people they had to replace on that team. The Coach O was going to have them prepared, and I don't know if they were prepared for what they got, but and I don't know if anybody's going to be. I mean, like I said, that Mike Leach offense is going to be interesting to watch when this is the offenses that we've been talking about that we want to see come to the SEC, and here we have it. Lane Kiffin's going to bring it. Mike Leach is going to bring it, and it's going to be interesting seeing them two go head to head with Alabama and with Auburn with a little bit better defenses and see what happens here. It's going to be very interesting. Not saying that they're going to beat Alabama. I'm not saying that by any stretch of imagination, but it's going to be fun to watch these prolific offenses that we've seen elsewhere in the country come here.
Yeah,
SEC and see what they can do.
So I put this stat together myself. Out of all the teams that played yesterday, if you had to just pick a number out of the sky and say this many teams scored a touchdown or less in the first quarter, how many teams would you say?
This team or less? I bet. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Hang on. I can't count today. So how many teams do you think in the first quarter only scored a touchdown or less out of all the teams that played?
Touchdown or less out of all the top 25 games?
Yep.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know we didn't have it in the Georgia game. I'm not even sure where to start with that one.
So there was 34 teams in the top 25 that played yesterday, right? Just giving you the numbers. 27 of those scored a touchdown or less in the first quarter. I mean, to me, hang on a second. I got some weird something going on. Some weird noise going on. What is? Did you hear that?
I did not hear anything.
Okay. Now I'm just medication's wearing off apparently. I don't know if that's indicative of just kind of getting off to a rough start first week of college football. I would like to say that's the case, but there was only like a handful of teams that scored more than a touchdown in the first quarter of all these games. Florida was one, Alabama, Texas and Texas Tech, Miami, UCF got a field goal and a touchdown, so just barely. And then Pitt and Virginia Tech. And that was it. Everybody else scored a touchdown or less.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a pretty clear indication that there's a lot of rust that was getting kind of knocked off. But man, it was now let's talk about the game that was scaring the fire out of Auburn, the University of Kentucky versus Auburn game.
Yeah, that was another one that was, really close for most of the game. I mean, the final score I don't think shows how close that game was.
No, not at all.
That one was really interesting to, I mean, like I said, I think Auburn, if I remember correctly, I think Auburn scored scored, I think outscoring 14-0 in the fourth quarter to win the game.
Yeah.
That game, I mean, that one was, I really thought Auburn was going to lose that game from watching watching as much of as I did.
Going into the fourth quarter, Auburn was ahead by 2 points.
Yeah.
And Kentucky kind of stubbed its toe a little bit, made some mistakes, ended up costing themselves a game, basically, and Auburn walks out of there with a 29-13 win. If you look at a 29-13 win and you say, man, that's a pretty solid margin. That's 2 scores. Well, yeah, it is, but that game was so much closer than what you see. When you look at the other quarterbacks on here and you see that they're averaging like 20 yards a pass, Terry Wilson was 24 for 37, which is a really high percentage, but he was only 239 yards. That is Jake Fromm-esque numbers. What's going on, William G? Let me catch up with the chat here real quick. What's going on, Sean Stapleton, Rob F, Jimbo Who Dat, one of my favorite names, just because I get to say it. Everlasting Chaos, Artie Clay. I already got you earlier, sir. I think I missed somebody else in here. William G. Okay. Glad you guys are here. But when you look at this game on paper, this game was really, really close up until the fourth quarter. And then, Auburn goes up by a touchdown. And then right after that, it just that one mistake. Kentucky could have got back in it. They made a mistake. Wasn't able to get out on the field and score. And then Auburn goes down and kind of puts it away. So,
yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about another game here that was just a traditional Big 12 matchup. No defense whatsoever. Track meet up and down the field. How many points can you score? Let's try and break 120 points in a game. Texas versus Texas Tech. 63-56. And surprisingly, Alan Bowman for Texas Tech was the top performer in that. Terry Wilson was the top performer in quarterback for Kentucky. Bo Nix, obviously, the winning quarterback. Alan Bowman threw for 31 for 52, which is about a 62 percentage, but 325 yards, but 5 touchdowns. Nobody expected Texas Tech to come out here and hang 56 points on Texas. Excuse me.
Well, I remember we talked about this game too, about the Texas Tech's ability to score points. I think this one had kind of a high line as well, and this is one of the reasons that I didn't see any points being covered on this game. I mean, I knew the points were going to be flying all over the place. Typical Texas Tech type game. Pretty impressive that Texas was able to hang in there with that game. I mean, they scored late. They scored late to force overtime in that game, and then and then won it in overtime. But I mean, that game. Again, I wasn't watching this one at the end because I think this one was taking place. I don't know if it was right around the same time the Georgia game was ending, but I mean, I think I had called that game. I think I had texted you and said, I think Texas is losing. I think we're going to have a week where what did I say? I think Oklahoma, Texas, and LSU all lose the first in week 1,
Yeah.
So it was pretty impressive that Texas held on. I mean, I think Texas is going to go on and have a great year. Scary game. That's a huge game for a team to overcome like that, to stay in those type of games and win it in overtime like that. I mean, it's gutsy.
Well, imagine being Oklahoma right now, and then you lose like that, and then you turn around and look up, and Texas has hung 63 points on anybody, right? Anybody. Texas Tech is not a bad football team. They're not incredibly good, but they're not a bad football team. You go out in there and you hang 63 points on anybody. To tell you how difficult that is, last year or year before last, can't remember which, Georgia hung like 55 points on Texas or Georgia Tech. And there is a huge difference in talent between UGA and Georgia Tech. And UGA didn't hang 63 on them. So, and not to mention that, Texas scored nearly double digits in every quarter and then come back and tied it up. They stayed in the fight the whole time. So, I mean, it was just a great game to watch. Do I believe Texas is back? No, because as Oklahoma has just proven, being able to hang points on the board is good, but not having a defense can really hurt you. And we can clearly see that they hung 56 points on you. So, therefore, defense non-existent. This is basically two teams where every time the ball changed hands in possession, that team scored. Texas A&M number 10 at Vanderbilt. They drove the struggle bus all game. Texas A&M actually got a safety against them. Can't believe that happened, but somehow Vanderbilt allowed Texas A&M to get a safety, or however you want to say it. Vanderbilt got 2 points. Texas A&M is not a number 10 ranked team. Not even close. Kellen Mond, which I had been kind of high on in the offseason. Kellen Mond is terrible, sir. Kellen Mond is an 8th-year senior. 5th year for Ellinger, yeah. Kellen Mond, I was kind of high on him. I really said this guy had some weapons. If he did, he left them at home. He went 17 for 28 and only 189 yards. I don't know if it's a bad play, call, plan, book, whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't seem to be working. They need to get that addressed. Then we're going to go to
this is really weird. That was a really weird game.
I
remember checking up on that one. I was like, what is this? Did somebody
It's like high school.
Somebody mistake the Georgia score with the because I think it was I think they had 5 points at some point in that game. I was like,
yeah, they had it was 5-7 at halftime.
Yeah.
Then we jump down and let's talk about my favorite. I won't say my favorite, maybe my third favorite game of the day to watch. Florida State and Miami.
Yeah.
Florida State.
This one was way worse than we even imagined, right? I think we called this one to be kind of a blowout, and I wasn't, I did not realize it was going to be as bad as it was. I knew it was going to be bad, but woo.
This was just a beating. I mean, this was no mercy. We're going to beat you to death at every turn. Now, I will say Miami come out after the half. They were up at halftime. They were up 38-3. And I think they came out with the twos. I'm not sure what happened after the half. Miami came out and looked sluggish. I think they were just mailing it in at that point. And then I don't know if they swapped out the twos in the fourth quarter. Those guys come in, scored a couple of touchdowns. Final score being 52-10.
This game is, I remember mentioning about Blackman being sacked so many times, and this is once again. I mean, I don't know how many times that Miami sacked him, but it seems like every time I paid attention to this game, Blackman was getting off the ground.
I believe he was actually sacked 5 times, but I believe he was knocked down upwards to 11 or 12.
Yeah, and this is week in and week out for Florida State. I mean, going on for as long as this kid's been at Florida State. It's been blamed on the offensive line. It's been blamed on coaching. I think it's time to say that this kid just holds on to the ball too long. I mean, he's one of these guys, and this could be, a result of offensive line or whatever. But it seems like this kid's trying to, he's trying to win the game with every play. You know what I mean? He just hold on to the ball way too long, and I think this guy was a 3-star. I did a little bit of looking into this. This kid was a 3-star. I don't think he was ever meant to be Florida State starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think if you go back to Jimbo Fisher leaving Florida State, he didn't really do them any favors on his way out. A lot of people claimed that he kind of shut down before he ever left. I don't think he recruited a quarterback to come in. And I don't think Willie Taggart recruited a quarterback.
I don't think Willie Taggart could recruit a quarterback.
So I think this is just a result. This is a result of poor recruiting at the quarterback level. I think they got some guys now that are ready to step in there. I think they got that kid from Valdosta, that Rodemaker guy, from Valdosta, Georgia. That's ready to go. Or I think he's injured, but he's ready to go any moment now. But poor recruiting has gotten this kid in there into a situation where he's just outmatched, week in and week out.
Now, I will say one of the surprising factors in this game, and not just that Miami scored 52 points, which kind of surprised me. Didn't surprise me as much as the fact that they fumbled 4 times and still scored 52
points. Yeah.
Typically, when you have a turnover margin of 4, which they only lost 2, when you have 4 fumbles in a game, 2 of them by Mark Pope, and you still manage to come out with a 42-point deficit, of points towards the other team. The other team comes up with a 42-point deficit. That's just incredible. That also goes to show you how bad Florida State really is. It was just terrible. I mean, it was absolutely terrible. They had one good play all game, and it was a 21-yard kick return, and I can't find anything other than that. It was just terrible. Florida State is probably going to go 0-10. I mean,
it's not surprising.
It's not looking good for them.
Yeah.
Okay, coming up next, UCF beats East Carolina 52-28, which is East Carolina performed better than FSU.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of exactly what we expected, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, UCF beating up on somebody they should beat.
UCF, I believe, has absolutely earned an opportunity to be in either the ACC or kick out Vandy and put UCF in the SEC or move them to the Big Ten or something, because they actually perform better than about 80% of the lower tiers in the Big Ten and the Big 12.
Yeah.
Now, I picked Army over Cincinnati. Army's defense is still pretty good, but they just couldn't pull it off. Cincinnati's a real deal. They're probably placed close to where they need to be. I'd probably say this is a knocking on the door top 10 team, 24-10. Defense is very good for Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati is, I think they got a date with UCF later in the year. So I mean, we'll see what happens there. I mean, that should be an interesting game, because I'm predicting that both of these teams are undefeated at the time, probably both top 10 teams at the time. It's going to be a huge game for both of these teams.
Absolutely. That's actually a game I'll probably even watch. So
yeah, for sure.
Looking at Oklahoma State versus West Virginia, Oklahoma State did a little better than I thought. West Virginia took the L here. Offense never really could seem to get going. Oklahoma State kind of had fits and starts where they could get going, but nothing really exciting here about watching that game. I'm going to come back to the Tennessee-South Carolina game because that was a really fun game. BYU absolutely destroyed Troy, 48-7. Again, nothing exciting there. Louisiana, Raging Cajuns, they pulled it off, man, 20-18. So they pick up a win there. Hats off to those guys. Yeah. Virginia Tech looked really good starting out. They kind of lost a little momentum. 45-24 over North Carolina State.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick. The rankings could be interesting later on this year, right? With UCF and these, like the Raging Cajuns, I mean, they're likely to go undefeated, through their conference as well. So you're gonna, you possibly may have some of these some of these lower or outside of the Power Fives sitting there undefeated that you've given this preseason ranking to. So it's going to be interesting. They've kind of set themselves up for some interesting drama when it comes time to start picking playoff teams here.
I would actually at this point like to see a UCF versus Oklahoma game.
Yeah, I think UCF will destroy them based on what I've seen.
Based off of what I've seen, me too.
Yeah.
Another interesting game, at least into the fourth quarter, the Louisville-Pittsburgh game. Louisville-Pittsburgh, 20-23. This game was about as back and forth as you could get it, and it just really seemed like both teams, I don't know what you would call it, they just kind of ran out of steam. They didn't really seem to have that power punch through that they had earlier in the game by the time they got to the fourth quarter. Pittsburgh was up by 3 at that point, and that's where it stayed. Now, I'm gonna put a guy out here. If you like good football players, I could care less about some of these teams, but I like watching up and coming football players. this guy, Javian Hawkins, is an absolute stud. He's about as big. He's about as wide as this. But the guy's about as nimble as that, too. You can't tackle that guy, man. He can turn on a dime. I have never seen a college football running back. You know, they make these jokes about guys being the human controller, the joystick, and hit the spin move and all this. Look, this guy, Javion Hawkins, that guy he's going to transfer to somewhere and be a real player. He needs to put on about 20 pounds, but he's small, he's lightweight, and super, super fast. Guys, his 0 to 60 is better than any running back I've seen this season. Any running back.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He on 13 carries, he went 78 yards, which is, almost – it's exactly 6 yards per carry. It's hard to lose a game when you've got a running back that you can count on to give you 6 yards every time. But somehow Louisville manages to do it. All right, let's jump up here to the Tennessee-South Carolina game. I watched this game, the end of this game. This was probably the game of the day to me.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Oh, man. Neither team had a really good quarterback. Garantano, for whatever reason, Tennessee fans love this guy. I cannot understand why. He is the Felipe Franks of Tennessee. He has flashes of brilliance, and then he has flashes of disaster. Tennessee showed at times they had a great offensive line, and then they had times that the offensive line couldn't keep anything out. It was just all over the place. South Carolina had the same thing. Now, what I will say is, watching this game, this actually looked like SEC football. These two teams were getting after it. They were aggressive. There was hard hits. They were flying around all over the field. Now, whether or not they were executing the plays perfectly, maybe not so much, but you could see the enthusiasm there. You could see the passion. These guys were trying to kill each other. Crimson Breast has really bred every Tennessee fan. Y'all too are. I don't speak Alabamese, Crimson Brave. Retype it. I don't know what you're trying to say.
I think he's trying to say that every Tennessee fan is ready for him to go.
No, that's not true, dude. That is not true. Two of the other content creators that do college football, which is BVD, go watch his channel, and Volunteer Roadshow. He's actually got some pretty big names that's on his show. He actually had Fulmer on his show the other day, not too long ago. But anyway, they like Garantano, and I'm a Georgia fan, and I was telling them last year, I was like, you guys' best quarterback by far is Marauder, whatever his name is. The guy can play. And I know because we was playing against him, and I was like, put Garantano back in. So it's all good, Crimson Brave. But to me, man, I don't know, man. I just think Garantano is going to give you the same thing Felipe Franks does. He's going to give you mediocre football performance, and you're going to get what you get, and you're going to lose to the big teams. Just so happened that Tennessee would pull this one out late in the game. They hung on. This game came down to the wire, and a mistake at South Carolina by basically a true freshman quarterback, in my opinion, because this is his first season in the SEC, that Mike Bobo drug away from wherever he drug him away from. He shows up, takes the job away from Helinski, gets in there, and does an okay job for the most part. But Tennessee just wanted it more. It's basically the only way I can say it. Come down to, I think, an interception there at the end, or it might have been a fumble at the end. But it sealed the job. Carolina had a real shot to go down there and win that game, but they lost it. What was your thought, sir?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch the end of this game. I was out with some friends watching the Georgia game, and I think I watched the first half of it, and it was a really entertaining game. Very good performance by Tennessee to pull this game out late. The pass Garantano hit late in the fourth quarter there. That was a dagger.
There was some really good throws made in that game. There was some really hard smash mouth football. I love seeing that 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and then seeing every offensive lineman and a running back and a cheerleader run in from the sideline and push the pile. I'm so glad they let the guys do that. They took that away for a while. Now you can push the pile. I'm a big fan of it. I just think that's football. I think there's nothing more hard-nosed about a football game than handing a running back and then seeing which team can physically overpower the other by pushing the ball down the field. I just love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go up here and talk about Alabama, so all the Alabama fans can leave the stream now, because that's what they're here for. Alabama, how dare you let Missouri score 19 points? What are y'all doing, man? 19 points. Y'all should be ashamed. Y'all should be writing letters, fire Nick Saban tomorrow. Defense unacceptable. No way I would take that kind of performance, sir.
Yeah, I think these were backdoor points, right? I think they scored most of this in the fourth quarter. Not typical Saban-esque. He usually does not allow that to happen, but I think these were points scored at the very end. So.
Damn it, Saban's getting soft in his old age.
Yeah, exactly.
I ain't taking this, man. Only score. How do y'all let Missouri score more points than y'all in any quarter? And I'm gonna rip on Georgia too. Don't you worry, we'll get there. I promise.
Mm-hmm.
But how y'all gonna let them outscore?
Hey, we covered ours though. We covered ours.
I don't think Alabama covered though. I'm about to check.
I think they had the same line we did. It was like 26 and a half, somewhere around there.
I actually was going to bet this game. I really was. And then at the last moment, I was like, oh, it's the first game of the season. I'm nervous. I'm not going to do it. I chickened out. And I'm glad I did because I'd have lost money on it.
Yeah, I watched the first quarter of this game and didn't even finish watching it because I just figured it was going to be a 60-0 kind of game. I mean, Alabama was all over them right off the rip.
How do you go from 28-3 at the half? 28-3 at the half. Y'all supposed to be a second half team. We know because y'all have beat the hell out of us 2 times doing that. We had a big lead on y'all at the half, and then y'all make it up and win at the end of the game. Who can't close now? Y'all scored a grand total of 10 points in the second half. I'm embarrassed for y'all. I really am. I'd be ashamed. I'd hang my head.
Yeah, season's over now.
Season's over right now. Hang it up. All right, so congratulations to Alabama. You handled your business. You got away with no injuries. Najee Harris out there doing Najee Harris things. I'm a big fan of Najee Harris. I like this guy. He's a big physical player. 3 rushing touchdowns in one game, 17 carries for 98 yards. By the way, Big Dog Brett told you Mac Jones was going to be your starter. Guess who your starter was? Mac Jones. And Mac Jones out there doing Mac Jones things. 18 for 24 and 250 yards. Okay. The guy's averaging 15 yards a carry, give or take. Good night. What else do you want from the guy?
He threw he was throwing the 2 NFL wide receivers, right? I mean, Waddle and Smith, Devonta Smith. I mean, these guys are.
Hey, Jake Fromm had NFL receivers too. He couldn't do anything with them, so there's got to give him some credit, man.
I don't know. Fromm ain't have no receivers like this. He had Pickens, but as a true freshman, Waddle and Smith. I mean, Jalen Waddle is serious. That dude.
Next year is going to be the first year that 2 players get drafted as the number 1 first-round draft pick at the same time. It's going to be both of those receivers. Those guys are insane. Saw some crazy catches yesterday. Some really, really impressive stuff. It would be impressive. Waddle would be impressive if he was any other human on the planet. But it's like watching Superman jump over a 20-foot building. It's impressive for anybody else to do it, but it's just Jalen Waddle doing Jalen Waddle things, man. Got about 8 receptions for 134 yards. Good night. I hope you don't go down, man. If you let that guy get behind you, you need to do, what do they say that in the Mean Machine? I don't care if you have to stab him in the neck. Don't let that guy behind you. He's dangerous. Dangerous.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, last year Crimson Brave, last year Judy and Rose. Yeah, that last year Alabama. I mean, last year Alabama had 4 NFL wide receivers on their team. That is insane.
And still couldn't win a natty. I'm just saying. No, there's those absolute the talent, the wide receiver position at Alabama is incredible. Judy, Ruggs, Waddle, and Smith are going to be part of what's going to continue to allow Alabama to recruit top-notch receivers. Those guys going in the first round like that are going to pull they're going to pull recruits to that school for years and years and years. So those guys are incredible. So, all right, let's take the beating here. Let's talk about Georgia, Arkansas, because I got tons to say about this. I'm gonna let you go first. First impressions.
Well, my first impression is that DeJuan Mathis, man. I don't want to say anything bad about the kid, but I don't know if I guess my first impression is appreciated Jamie Newman. That's the one thing I kept coming back to in that game. It just makes me wonder, what would have happened if he was going to opt out, if he'd have done it 2 months ago, or what would have happened if he'd have played. I really hope there's a big step up in performance with JT Daniels, because this this narrative that's out there that Jamie Newman transferred because he was afraid of his draft stock going down because of the competition. It ain't from Mathis. And I don't know if the kid, he may be one of these kids that performs well in practice, and he went out there because he just seemed like he was trying too hard. He seemed like he was trying to put every play on his back and overthinking everything. And you could just see when Stetson came out there, he wasn't doing anything spectacular. He was just calm, collective, letting everything happen in front of him. You could tell it was as if the game slowed down when Bennett was in the game. It was amazing, just the difference. I mean, and you could see it happen twice, right? I mean, they put Mathis back in the game at the end of the game, and it reverted right back to what we saw in the first half. So I'm not real sure what to take from that, other than I guess Stetson Bennett earned a start at Auburn.
I have done, I've gotten off into some transcendental meditation trying to figure this out, man. So I've looked at a number of things. All right, first and foremost, the defense out of the gate looked absolutely terrible. There's no reason Arkansas should have been able to move the ball the way they did. I have a problem with that.
They hit the one deep bomb that seems to always happen in a Georgia game, right? There's always the one deep pass where somebody gets burnt. The costing us a national championship one year.
Yeah,
it always seems to happen.
Yeah, that's why my exact words were again. Really, again. I mean, I understand when the quarterback rolls out, you have that, maybe it's first game jitters, but you have that natural inclination to shorten up the field and start moving towards the quarterback because you think he's going to run. But you should never give up your assignment until he has crossed that line of scrimmage. You need to have that in your mind where that line of scrimmage is. And then once he crosses that line, then start closing the field. You're not the only line of defense out there, and it cost them a touchdown. Now,
I think the defense played well. I mean, that game, had the defense not played that well, I think that game could have been out of reach early on. I mean, we gave them every opportunity to put that game away, but they just couldn't seem to do anything with it. Our offense definitely, I mean, this was reminiscent of last year, right? I mean, we were just, 3 and out or just in and out really quickly, giving the ball back to them. And I was just, I was waiting for our defense to kind of cave and give a field goal here and a touchdown here and it to be, and then, in Arkansas to have 14, 17, 21 points at half, and put us really behind the 8 ball. But, I don't know what happened at halftime, but,
Well, before we get to the halftime mark, I'm going to finish what I was saying about Jamie Newman. DeJuan Mathis, I was excited when I saw him come out. The first play Georgia runs is a design quarterback run. You can tell it's a design quarterback run. The whole field is spread out. The pocket closes around him and kind of lets the defenders get behind him. It opens up a big hole in front of him, and he takes off down the field. I believe this was absolutely done on purpose with the intention of showing the Georgia fan base and everybody else that, hey, now we have a running quarterback. Next play is a dart across the middle, caught for a reception, and I'm like, all right, man, this is looking good. This is what I wanted to see, and then it fell apart.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, it did. I mean, when he took that sideline hit, I don't know if that was a changing point in the game or what, but
he wasn't the same after.
Yeah, he wasn't the same afterwards, and I think the announcers even called it too. I was saying this to my wife when we were watching the game. Like the next series, he scrambles and runs out of bounds a yard short of the first down.
Yeah.
And
what are you doing? And he easily had it.
Yeah. And the announcers called it out. Like, Kirby probably told him to avoid contact, and he did. And so,
well, and let's be fair. Let's be absolutely fair. That is definitely the hardest hit he has taken since before his injury.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that may have shook him up quite a bit, because after that, he looked pretty frantic. It didn't. What's going on, Michael Porter? It didn't look like he was trying to avoid contact. It looked like he feared it.
Yeah, he definitely, he definitely was different after that. I don't know. We didn't have much data points, I guess, before that hit, but I mean, things seemed to be okay before that. But after that hit, I mean, he just there were 2 times that I remember distinctly where he had an opportunity to run for a first down and just came up short, just like bailed out of bounds before the line. And it's just, that's, to me, that's either one of 2 things or maybe a combination of both. Is scared of getting hit, one, and not having your head in the game and knowing where the chains are at.
And that's true. I mean? And that's true too. But I'm gonna have to say, I think it's certainly possible that Kirby Smart, for lack of a better terminology, jerked him by his shirt and said, "Hey, dude, I appreciate the effort, but this is flipping Arkansas, man. You don't have to put everything on the line for this. Don't get hurt in this game. We've got this. You don't have to put this game on your back. I understand you're excited, but don't get hurt. We need you." Now, that conversation was probably had. I can understand why it would be. But it really seemed like DeJuan Mathis really couldn't hit his mark after that. He seemed nervous. He seemed a little shook up. Now, takeaways. I am incredibly impressed that Kirby Smart pulled his head out of his butt and said, "This quarterback's not working. You need to go in and play."
Yeah.
Because before, he would never do that.
Yeah. And I remember we exchanged texts. I think I texted you. I was like, "It's time to see Carson Beck," right?
Mm-hmm.
And, because it was time. It was time to make a change. And this was LSU all over again, right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to ride this guy to a loss? Or are you going to do what a coach has to do and snatch the kid out and put somebody in that can make a play? Now, I did not think it was going to be Stetson Bennett by any stretch of imagination. I really thought they were going to, I really thought we were going to see Carson Beck. I really, really did. But I mean, that was probably stupid of me. I didn't even think about Bennett going in there. I figured that, that we would see what Carson Beck could have. You wouldn't really worry about burning his red shirt. You could give the kid, a chance to come in there and see what happened. But I mean, Kirby made a great decision going Stetson Bennett. We needed somebody to calm that game down, that knew what was going on. It's been in situations bigger than this. And that's exactly what happened. Like I said, when that game come in, it was a completely different game. You could see the offense. We didn't
settle down.
Yeah, we didn't turn into Oklahoma or anything like that, but you know what I'm saying? But I mean, he was throwing passes. We were catching passes, and that opened up the run game a little bit. So this is just completely different.
So again, I've done a ton of thinking about this. I really think that part of that is that the offensive line is not, what's the word I'm looking for? Experienced enough in dealing with and being able to help protect a very mobile quarterback. But they are very experienced in protecting a pocket passer, which is why it looked frantic. They were trying to protect Dewan Mathis. He's going to be Jamie Newman all year. I swear to God, I'm going to keep saying it.
I'm not sure you're going to say his name too much.
So, especially after a couple of games like that.
I really don't. I don't mean to talk about the kid, and I was really excited to see him roll out there. But
I don't do a whole lot of tweeting, but when I saw him come out on the field, I was like, yes, QB number 1. All right, let's go. Well, then he comes out there, and I'm like, yes, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Who is this guy? This cannot be the same guy that all those former Braves players was talking about, former Bulldog players were talking about was the next thing since Cam Newton. Listen, man, it was not. The offensive line gets out there. Stetson Bennett comes in. It was almost like the offensive line breathed a sigh of relief. They're like, okay, this is old hat. We can do this all day.
Yeah, I was really hoping that, like what you're mentioning, that I thought that, I was thinking that was kind of the game plan, that they had Jamie Newman preparing for the mobile quarterback, preparing for the dual threat quarterback, being able to, game plan with Jamie Newman. And then you put Mathis in, not saying that he's the same quarterback, but you're getting, both are rated as dual threat quarterbacks. So you can kind of plug and play a little bit, but something wasn't clicking for sure. Like you said, I don't know if it was the offensive line or the moment was just too big for Mathis or
combination. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of things that really kind of culminated in that. You got an offensive line that's not really experienced with dealing with a mobile quarterback. You have a mobile quarterback who's never played as a starter in an SEC game, and it's his first real game after a major injury, and it's a season of shortened practice. Just a ton of things there that really limited their ability for him to get out there and perform at his absolute potential. It looked to me like there was the game plan in place and the conversation was had with everybody involved. Hey, look, dude, we're gonna start Dewan. We're gonna start Dewan. Stetson Bennett's not gonna be mad about it because Stetson Bennett's been a backup since he's been a walk-on. He came to UGA as a walk-on QB, knowing that he would likely never start a game.
Well, he transferred away, then transferred back to be the backup quarterback.
Yeah. So, he knew. And so when Kirby Smart looks across the table and he goes, hey, Stetson, make sure you're ready to play. We're going to start Dewan Mathis, and if it gets out of hand, you're probably going to go in. And he looked at Carson Beck and said, you know what, shut up. You're just going to have to sit over there and wait your turn. We'll put you in if we absolutely have to. But it really looked like that was the plan from the start, is that we're going to start Dewan Mathis, and then we'll go to Stetson if it gets out of hand. And that's what happened. Yeah. Maybe in a couple of weeks or so, we get past Alabama, they may put Dewan Mathis back in and try to develop him from there on out the rest of the season, because after this season, if I'm not mistaken, Stetson's gone.
Yeah. Well, I think, I see a lot of people in the chat saying, Georgia's offense terrible. We got to worry about Georgia's offense. And, on paper, I agree. But if you watch that game, let's be honest. We've all joked about Stetson Bennett, but when Stetson Bennett came in, we scored points. We scored points in the second half. We ended up covering the 26.5 pretty much all in the second half. And yes, it's Arkansas, but our offense clicked. And I think it goes to show you that you don't really need this Heisman caliber quarterback. Alabama shows you every week. You don't need the Heisman caliber quarterback when you got NFL talent around him. When you got guys that you can throw the ball. When you got Pickens and Jermaine Burton and all these and all these other guys that are out there as weapons. If you just got somebody that can deliver the ball to them, you can win the game. That's what Stetson Bennett did. He didn't do anything spectacular. He scrambled for a couple first downs. He made smart decisions that good experienced quarterbacks do, and that's all we needed. So
let's go over the scoring and how it went. Arkansas comes out. I think they go 3 and out. Then we come out and we go like 3 and 37 penalties in and out.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, somebody let the referees know that they have all season to call penalties. They don't have to call every penalty that they're ever going to get in one game. There was penalties on both sides that were pretty ridiculous. Not saying it would have changed the outcome of the game, But there's games I watch where stuff doesn't get called, and it's more fun to watch than it is to have games where a penalty's called every other play, and you're like, Jesus freaking A. What are we doing now? Another penalty. What is it? Holding. I hate to see a holding call, especially one that's not involved in the play, because holds happen every stinking down. There's no need to call the ones that don't affect the play, but they were doing some of that too. But anyway, Georgia comes out, got a safety. I can't remember the last time we got a safety and a field goal. So we go into the half 5-7. Sounds like a baseball score, especially for Georgia, which is just weird. And then it's like, all right, Kirby Smart tells everybody in the locker room, everybody's off scholarship if we don't beat Arkansas. They come out of the half like somebody had juiced them up, and they went to just working on Arkansas. And it looked cool, calm, collective, but it did not look like Georgia football. It did not. What's going on, Jesse? What it looked like was an alternative plan that Todd Monken had come up with. It looked more Todd Monken than it did running back U. Zamir White got like 71 yards. James Cook was practically non-existent in the game. Zeus, stop using Zeus on a damn kick return, please. He's supposed to be like the best running back in the nation. There is no need to put this guy on kick return at all.
That's how he got injured.
Yeah.
Right before he ever took a snap at Georgia was returning kickoffs
I understand the guys electrifying, and that's great. Don't put this guy on kick return. So many injuries happen on kick return that it has been considered to stop all kick returns in football. I don't agree with it, but it's been considered. That's how dangerous it is. So Stetson Bennett comes out, calms the ship, and it becomes a short, quick passing game and some downfield strikes. I was very impressed at how Stetson Bennett was able to make some of these downfield strikes. It reminded me, kind of roll back to the days of Aaron Murray, where there were quick little passes, and then the next thing you know, he's taking the top off us. And so you got to respect that. And then the running game would open up. The running game at UGA, as of right now, does not exist. It does not exist. If you can't run the ball against Arkansas, hats off to Sam Pittman. Maybe he's turned a corner. More games will tell you, what a Sam Pittman offensive defensive line can do. But Georgia could not run the ball. It just wasn't there. So a lot of growth to be had.
Yeah.
So
I think there was a scramble the first half, just trying to figure out something, and when the running game wasn't working and DeJuan Mathis wasn't working. I wish they would have played a little bit more design run with Mathis to give him a little bit more confidence. I think they could have. I think we could have used a few more of those.
Well, I think the only reason they left him in as long as they did is because they were trying to give him an opportunity to get it turned around, and he just couldn't.
Yeah.
Now, hats off to Felipe Frank, MVP for UGA, delivering us his fourth loss to UGA. We're very excited about that. Thank you, sir. Check is in the mail. Those 2 interceptions you threw are much appreciated.
Yeah.
So first, to go over the game cast real quick, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. Tennessee came out, scored a field goal. Got a touchdown. Georgia got a safety and then a field goal, and then the third quarter started. And at this point, Arkansas comes out, scores a field goal, makes it 5-10. Stetson Bennett comes in. Guess who scored the first touchdown pass of the season? You guessed it, Mr. George Pickens. And then John Fitzpatrick scores another touchdown. And then Eric Stokes with the pick 6. Zamir White with a 6-yard touchdown run. And then a field goal by Podlesny. I don't even know. I didn't even know we had that guy as a kicker. But the pick 6 was exciting. If that pick 6 didn't exist, this ends up being a 30-10 game. By the way, Arkansas, thank you for icing the kicker. It helped tremendously and also allowed us to cover. So thank you for that icing, because we missed the first kick.
Yeah.
The second one we did not miss.
Yeah, I mean the the three interceptions were all account with two interceptions. Stokes with an interception. I think we had these guys picked out as people to watch for. Not that it wasn't that obvious. These are two stars on defense. The one interception by the count, the one-handed grab, that was incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a beautiful interception.
Just when I saw that, I watched it the first time, and then I watched on YouTube TV. So then I backed it up and watched it again. I was like, not only did he catch that with one hand, he pretty much only had one hand on it until he got to the ground. And so he's like, he's got it way up here, catches it, and then as he's hitting the ground, it's getting to his body. I thought for sure it come loose, but it didn't. He held on to it. What's going on, C-Dog West? Atypical Gump, Jesse J, Crimson Brave, Dog Nation, Jaqual Hallman, Dwayne RTR, Michael Porty, RJ All Day, Brad Pitt, and I'm sure there's a bunch more people in here. Do me a favor, take just a moment, hit the thumbs up. It really does help the channel, helps the logarithms, cardiac arrhythmia of YouTube to get it pushed up in the recommended feed. Once it gets to the recommended feed, other people see it more often. They click on the video more often, and we get more subscribers. Channel grows, gets better, and then we can invite better people on here than myself. So, if you guys have an opportunity and you want to join the channel, there is a join and subscribe button down below. Become a member. You can also become a subscriber. So feel free to join the channel, and you will get a lovely emblem next to your name, like Mr. Michael Porter. We are looking at some different, this is an exciting development with the channel. We are looking at getting some coffee cups and stuff made for the channel to be able to not only sell, but also give away to members for if you guys would like that. So enjoyed that pick six. Pick six was probably the most exciting thing in the whole game. Loved it. I was jumping up and down over that one. I was like, get them Savage pads out.
This was a prototypical Georgia game, kind of in reverse though. Like I said, I went out with my wife and some of her friends. We were at Sport and Social at the Battery in Atlanta watching the game on big screen TV with a bunch of people, or big, basically a big bar, big sports bar. It was a remarkable environment to watch a football game in, I will say. So I walked into we got there like basically right at halftime, and the crowd was just subdued. It's mostly probably about 60%, 70% dogs in there. Bunch of people, man, shoulder to shoulder type crowd. And man, how electric that was in the second half when everybody was just kind of, you were used to having the jubilation in the beginning and then the crush at the end. So we go from crushed and everybody's kind of like, sipping on their drinks, and all the fans of the other teams giving us crap. I got into it with a Florida fan. He's over there talking on the phone, being really loud to his friend, talking about how terrible Georgia was. And so I had to point out to him that it's been over 1,000 days since Florida beat Georgia. It went from subdued and Georgia fans kind of trying to hide and take their shirts off and turn them inside out to, to us covering the points and everybody high-fiving, and it was awesome. I'm used to, like I said, that experience in reverse.
Yeah, and that's probably why it was so much of a gut punch to come out and go in the half 5-7, because
we don't have a COVID law.
Yeah, we live in Georgia.
We in Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Wear a mask unless you're eating.
Yeah.
High five your neighbor when the dogs score. That's pretty much the law here.
I'll get into my prediction for the Auburn game a little later in the week, but to get back what I was kind of going over, we're so used to not having a whole lot of offense in the second half. When we rolled in at 5, we're like, there ain't much left in the tank, bruh. This gonna be a low scoring game. We might win this rascal 12-10. I'm hoping. Getting flashbacks and PTSD.
That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. I figured it's like, man, we're going to win. We're either going to lose this game or we're going to win it on some last second field goal, 12-10, like you said.
I'm like, oh Lord, we don't have Blinky. Oh, help me, Jesus!
Yeah,
somebody get Blinky in there. What? He's gone. We in trouble. But it was nice to see that the offense was able to calm down. Definitely steadied themselves. The biggest takeaway for me in this whole game was that UGA was losing to probably the worst or second worst team as of right now. The belief is anyway, they may end up being the number one team somehow. But for the players, they didn't give up. The coaches didn't give up. The defense looked at the offense and said, we gonna hold them. You guys do what you can, but we got you back. And they did. The defense went out there and they absolutely shut them down. They got one touchdown early on in the game and one field goal after the half, and that was it. Only one other team held their team to that few points, and that was Miami versus Florida State. Well, I'll take that back. Cincinnati did it to Army, but Cincinnati only scored 24 points. Alabama allowed Missouri to score almost double that. So at this point, if it continues like this, I'm more afraid of Florida than I am Alabama. I believe Florida played a better team in Ole Miss and scored more points. I believe Ole Miss is a better team than Arkansas, and Ole Miss is a better team than Missouri. And Ole Miss put 35 points on the board against Florida. I mean, that's just the way it looks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say at this moment. I think Alabama went out there and handled business. Like I said, the Missouri points were scored late. I'm not real, I think Alabama's going to be Alabama. That game, the Georgia-Alabama game, is going to be huge. I know we got to get past Auburn next week. I'm not as nervous about that game as I think probably people would say that I should be, maybe. Mm-hmm. But especially after this Arkansas game. But I think, I don't know if JT Daniels is going to get cleared this week. Hopefully it does happen. I think we're in kind of a day-to-day process on that. Either way, I'm kind of the opinion that Stetson Bennett won himself a start after that.
I mean, to come in and right the ship that well.
Yeah. I mean, I would feel more comfortable, strangely enough, to let Stetson start that game than to have JT Barrett cleared this week and then start a game at Auburn.
Yeah. So, Dwayne, I know that you guys had your twos in the fourth quarter. I hate to break it to you. So did Georgia. We were putting our twos in at the end of that game as well, because at that point the game was 27-10. We had our twos in. We didn't have all of our twos in, but y'all didn't either. But I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying that you guys played as hard as you could all four quarters. But what I will tell you is that even with you guys as normally having your number twos in, you guys are still scoring 14 to 21 points in the fourth quarter in a lot of these games, even with your twos against better teams than Missouri. I didn't see that. And again, I contribute that to this being the first game of the season. I think that there was a lot of mistakes made by a lot of teams. I don't know that Mizzou's any better than Arkansas, sir. I think they're both terrible teams. Yeah,
they're both. I mean, you're basically definitely trying to figure out which one's the shinier turd, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're both terrible. And I will definitely say that as of this moment, you have
JT Daniels, sorry.
Yeah, at this moment, you have my undying belief that Mac Jones is a better quarterback than any quarterback Georgia has right now. And he's proven track record. The guy can play. And you got two, we know, NFL receivers, and you have an NFL running back, period. Those are the knowns. So, yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Alabama's a trash team, but I'm saying that if I had to write down and get an assessment right now of whom is the better team based off of what I saw, Florida dominated start to finish with their number twos, with their number ones, with their number threes. They were just beaten. They scored double digits every quarter. They scored at least two touchdowns. They scored two touchdowns in the first quarter, two touchdowns second quarter, a touchdown and two field goals in the third quarter, and a touchdown and a field goal in the fourth quarter. They basically scored every time they had the ball.
Yeah.
They matched you guys for points in the first quarter, and then they outscored you in the second half of the game. So, But I mean, but it's the first week. You can't draw too much on it. I mean, Alabama's going to get the ship turned around, and they're going to be dominating the crap out of everybody they play. I guarantee you, Nick Saban is using this as a motivational tool because I guarantee you he's saying worse than I'm saying.
Well, without a lot of work and without spring games, I think a lot of teams were looking to get some reps in. I mean, you even look at Georgia. That's why we saw Mathis go back into that game, right?
Yep.
Just reps. You need live reps. And I think you saw a lot of teams doing that across the board.
There is no substitution for gameplay.
This is just just like we were talking about last week, leading into this. This is a strange year for college football, and it was definitely a strange week. Like, I'm going to keep calling this week 1 for college football. Sorry.
Yeah, that's why I put SEC week 1 because I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah, I think it's I'm not sure what
it's like week 4 or something.
Week 4, yeah. I think it's like week 4 or something like that. Like, yeah,
this is going to be
it's week 4. This is week 4. Yeah,
it's going to be the longest week season in college football. And now that we've kind of went over the teams a little bit, I'm going to make the Arkansas video, of course, later in this week. One of the things I do want to talk about is the Pac-12 coming in late. What if this isn't a last-ditch effort to try and get in the game? I don't know what else to call it. Of course, if congratulations, they're back in the mix. We're going to get all 5 teams playing college football. But I really don't like the way they handle it. I feel like they did a disservice to not only their players, but also their fans. Yes, you guys are getting to play. Yes, that's a good thing that we're getting to play. But I think it was handled very poorly. It was managed very poorly. To come out and say we're only going to play 7 games at a maximum, because it's very possible that some of these teams might only get to play 4 games. Because the moment that they get anybody who tests positive, they're out for 3 weeks. Yeah. So it's going to be intense. It's
going to be interesting. It's like we talked about before, when you get down to trying to pick playoff teams, right? When you have one conference that's played 8 games, one conference has played 7, another one's played 10, and you got some other conferences that played the whole daggum season. How do you reconcile that? Like I said, you could potentially have, like I said, an SEC East team sitting there with 1 loss that's not even going to get to participate in the SEC championship game.
Yep.
Just imagine a scenario where Georgia and Florida, one of them goes undefeated and the other one's only loss is to the other one. They don't get to play in the SEC championship game, but yet they're a 1-loss SEC team that played 10 games that's going to be considered against, another team that may have played only 8 games and the other one's played 7, which may be undefeated.
Well, let me throw a caveat. Let me throw a caveat into the whole mix. What happens if you have a 1-loss team and all right, for instance, let's say Georgia loses to Florida, right? Florida loses to another team, anybody else out there, and then they end up losing to, I don't know, Tennessee, whatever, miracle game. So now you've got Florida, who's a 2-loss team. Georgia's a 1-loss team to Florida, and they're going to the SEC championship, right? And then boom, COVID strikes. Georgia's out. Are they going to roll Florida in there to the SEC championship? How are they going to do that? Now imagine this: Florida goes on, wins the SEC championship, right? Or they're a 1-loss, and they go in and they play the SEC championship, and they win it, and then after that, the 3 weeks goes by. Everybody's cleared on Georgia to play. Who do they put in the playoff? Do they put the SEC championship, or do they put the team that should have went to the SEC championship because they're only 1 loss? And now you've got a 2-loss SEC champion, a 1-loss SEC was supposed to play in the SEC championship. Probably would have been the champion. Who do you pick then? It becomes so complicated.
Yeah. I definitely do not envy the playoff committee this year. No, I never have. It's terrible. a terrible position to be in because you're going to create, there's going to be a fan base that hates you every year, but this year is going to be difficult. It's going to be interesting, and I'm glad that the SEC did not wait around and end up playing less games than some of these other conferences, because the Pac-12 and the Big 12, they're in some interesting they're in an interesting situation. I mean, I can certainly see an undefeated Ohio State sitting there saying, "Hey, what about me?"
Right.
And then, and like I said, another one-loss SEC school that does not play an SEC championship game saying, "Hey, we're 9-1 and have played 3 ranked teams or 3 top 10 teams."
Yeah.
And Ohio State's over here only played 8 games total. It's
yeah. So imagine at the end of the season, right? Let's say that for some reason Alabama's ranked number 1, Clemson's ranked number 2, right? Nobody in the SEC is undefeated.
And so I think it's a real possibility. I'm actually going to be surprised if anybody in the SEC runs the table this year.
All right, so let's play the what if scenario, right? Because we like playing the what if scenario. Georgia plays Alabama and loses, and Alabama runs the table. Gets to the SEC championship, Georgia beats Alabama. Okay, so now you have a one-loss SEC team on one side who's won the SEC championship, and a one-loss SEC team on the other side. So you got Georgia loses. They got a one loss in the they got a one loss from the SEC championship game. You've got Alabama, who's got one loss, right? Who do you pick? Especially when you've got a team, their only loss is to the number 1 ranked team in the country. And then you've got a Pac-12 team who's 7-0. Now, I don't believe anybody's going to pick a Pac-12 undefeated team over a one-loss SEC team. But the same thing could happen for Clemson could lose 1 game, or Ohio State could go undefeated, but they only play 8 games. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to be in that mix. Hold on, let me catch up on the chat here. Michael Porter says UGA has a chance. Everybody has a chance this year, it seems. Ole Miss will climb the ladder. I think Ole Miss is probably a top 15 team based off of what I saw. I think Alabama is, based off of current performance, not current opinion, based off current performance, I would say Alabama's probably a top 5 team. Oklahoma, probably a top 20 team. Georgia, a top 10 team. Florida, top 5 team. LSU, top 20. Auburn, top 10. Texas, top 15. Texas A&M, top 15. Miami, top 5. UCF, top 15. Tennessee, top 15, top 20, somewhere in there. I'd probably say top 20. And I mean, that's pretty much the way I see it.
Yeah, Landon, I agree. Ole Miss offense is unpredictable. Of course, it was predictably unpredictable, right? I mean, this is Lane Kiffin. You knew the trickeration was going to come.
He's the air raid version of Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be surprised when you see the tricks.
He said Texas A&M is not a. Jamie Newman said Texas A&M is not a top 15 team. Well, they're 1-0 and they're ranked number 10. And I get that they didn't destroy Vanderbilt, but again, it's first week, so I'm trying to give everybody a little bit of leeway. But I am glad that Auburn did beat Kentucky, as much as I hate Auburn. So now I don't have to listen to Kentucky fans screaming that they're back. Like I've had to listen to Texas fans say that they're back. Kentucky's like, we're back, we're winning the SEC, and everybody except Texas fans went, or SEC fans went, sit down. No, you're not. And now, and every year when they take their first loss, then they're quiet again for another year. So, all right, guys, well, we're rolling on an hour and a half here. We appreciate you guys joining the channel. Keith, do you have anything else you wanted to add tonight, my man?
No, I just, I think it's going to be interesting. I think this is going to be an interesting week just of of thinking back on this game. I think Stetson Bennett's going to get a little bit of notoriety. Talk about on a national level a little bit here. It's going to be interesting to see what's said about him across the board. I think people are going to be high on him a little bit, but I'm looking forward to JT Daniels being cleared this week. And that we get to see him in this game. This Auburn game coming up is a huge game. We even talked about this leading into this game, that the Arkansas game was not going to be the one that's that important. It's going to be what happens in this Auburn game. It's really going to tell us a lot. I didn't think that was going to be because of what happened in this Arkansas game. I thought the game would be over by halftime and it would be inconsequential. But again, I think the Auburn game is where some answers are going to come for Georgia. As far as are we the first half of the Arkansas game, or are we the second half of the Arkansas game? And also, this is one thing I was going to talk about last week. I knew that this was a possibility. But game day is in Athens, I believe, this weekend. So
it is.
Anybody that's up that way, enjoy that. I got to experience game day in Athens in '98 when Tennessee was in town with T. Martin and those guys. It's a great experience. I don't know what it's going to be like, the COVID thing. I didn't watch game day this Saturday because I was out and about, so I don't know what's going on. The fans are there and everything, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun. We got a upcoming Auburn hype and hate video. Kind of give my breakdown. I always do a breakdown and then do a hype and hate video, so I'm going to do a breakdown on that team, and let you guys know what I think so far. So, well, guys, it's we've been going here for about an hour and a half, so lots of great information. Really appreciate you guys jumping on. Thanks you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit share, like, subscribe, join the channel, be a member, send it to your mom and them. We appreciate it. Y'all have a great day. You want to send us off there, Mr. Keith?
I believe it's God bless and go Dogs.
That's what it is. God bless. Go Dogs.